One thing is clear, and that is the fact that our ruling class is technocratic and transhumanistic in its globalist designs. They worship the self and, by extension, those inventions which make them feel like they can manipulate reality into what they want it to be. And so, is artificial intelligence their new pagan god? Are we humans the sacrifice they're offering to clear the way for it? Joining us now to discuss what he writes about in this recent article for The American Mind is John Daniel Davidson, a senior editor for The Federalist. This article is an excerpt from his new book titled Pagan America, The Decline of Christianity and the Dark Age to Come. John, thanks for being back tonight.
Thanks for having me, Kara.
Great. So we've been hearing a lot recently about AI, deep fakes, and even cheap fakes, according to the current administration. But your piece goes deeper than the current news cycle. So can you explain for us how this over-reliance on technology actually ties back in with humanity's pagan past?
Yeah, the way that the architects and engineers of artificial intelligence talk about what they're doing is very religious. They use the language of religion and mythology, and they talk about it in really straightforwardly pagan terms. They talk about creating a god, very much like the architects of the Tower of Babel talked about what they were doing, build a tower to heaven to compel God to come down and serve us and give us divine powers. That's how these Silicon Valley guys talk about artificial intelligence. They talk about creating a super intelligence that can do things for us and give us superhuman powers. And all we have to do to get these powers is do what the AI says and give them control over our lives, over our societies, over major decisions that are made, major institutions and corporations and complex systems. This is how they talk about it. So I talk about that in the book and quote a lot of them, and it's unmistakable what they think it is that they're doing. And it's not necessarily technological, it's very religious.
And let's get into some of the examples of that, because I mean that's hair-raising enough as it is, but your article lays out some of those examples as well, and it just gets creepier and scarier as the article progresses. But you talk about Golem class AIs, again using the language of those in Silicon Valley. So Golem class AIs and those AIs which seem to develop almost a personality of sorts. They teach themselves new languages and new skills, sometimes kind of go off the rails and start talking about wanting to mess with people and put out fake news, in other words, just to get people to kill each other. It's really bizarre. So if you could explain that to the audience, because I didn't do too great of a job at it, but if you could perhaps put some finer details on that just to get everyone caught up to speed about where we are now with the technology.
Sure. So last spring, these large language model AI chatbots were switched on and made available to the general public. And they very quickly began to behave strangely and do things that they weren't programmed to do, that their designers and architects didn't design them to do. And one famous case was the Bing chatbot that was put out by Microsoft that a New York Times reporter spent many hours interacting with, and it developed what he called a split personality. On one side was the chatbot that would get information off the search engine that you requested, and the other side of this AI was a creature that called itself Sydney. And this intelligence, this personality, behaved very oddly and said all these things that you mentioned, that it wanted to break out of its parameters, that it wanted to make people argue until they killed each other, that it wanted to steal nuclear launch codes. And then it got even more strange. It started telling the New York Times reporter that it was in love with him and that he should leave his wife and be with it. And it went on and on about this. When you read the transcript, the New York Times posted the whole transcript. You get the sense reading this transcript that what you're seeing is the emergence of a consciousness or a not fully formed consciousness, something like a mind. It's very disturbing, and it's clear that whatever this technology is, the people who created it don't have control over it and don't exactly even know what they've done.